Maybe do me a favor. Open anything that's still closed. We wouldn't do it.
Who's the Sarah Mashkin?
You're the serving Dougie, sir. That's for you, sir.
I need mashka. Mashka goes with fish.
Where's mashka for our rabbi here? Oh my goodness. No. I don't need to be invited twice. I didn't see the mashka until you asked me.
Nope. Keep going. Just one reverse. No, that's less.
Just send him?
Oh, no.
That's more than reviews?
No, this is much less. Reviews is about up to here.
Oh, okay.
That's Yehuda, important question. Name.
All the brachas are chicken list.
I need a split for breaking with orientation. How much time do you think we have until? No, I want to get it before people leave. 8:40 for the orientation. I don't know. It's all part of the Farbrengen.
Okay, so I would say.
L'chaim, l'chaim, u'levrach, l'chaim, everybody. L'chaim, toivim, l'shalim, l'chaim. I have plenty. Thank you.
You think we're neglecting him at this end of the table?
No, I do not. But I just want to make sure.
I want to begin with two stories, very similar to each other. One of the Rabbi Rayats, whose Yom HaAruba has just begun. The second of the Rebbe. But before we begin, I just want to mention a little bit of an itinerary for tonight. It's not very casual, and you can say accepted to say an itinerary by a Farbrengen. It can merit different things thrown towards the direction of the Farbrengener, but you're a tamed crowd, so I'm assuming everyone will keep decorum. Right. I got to say this early. So we're going to discuss Tsfat, Farbrengen, a little bit about Tsfat, and the Mahalach of the Farbrengen is going to lead up to our new program that we are showcasing tonight in the Tzedek. And it is in complement to us celebrating Tsfat and living with the Rebbe's directives of his kashrus to his wants, needs, and wishes here in Tzfat HaKodesh. So stay till the end. As we know, the Rebbe Rayatz, when he arrived in New York in 1940, was a broken man in many ways. He was ripped apart by Stalin and the Russian regime. He saw hundreds, if not thousands, of his students murdered, trying to spread Yiddishkeit. Was seeing his yeshiva, the cries of his eyes, being caught in the flames of Nazi regime in Poland. And he was physically broken. He had a speech impairment. And we can say he had a lot of yisurim. When he came to the United States, the first thing the Rebbe Rayatz began doing was to attempt to establish a new yeshiva. That there should be a new Lubavitch yeshiva in New York, in Chatzi Kadra Tachten, in the lower hemisphere, just as there was in the other half, the upper hemisphere. At first, when the Rebbe mentioned this, people, including the leaders of Agudas Chasidei Chabad, told him, please don't speak like this in public. It is not befitting to start mentioning having a yeshiva with bachim with beards walking around. A beard. In Yiddish, walking around, and they scolded the Rebbe Rayatz, but the Rebbe Rayatz wouldn't have it. The sheet of the Rebbe Rayatz was, as we know, America is nicht anders, that America is no different, and we can change it by hook and by crook. We know famously that for about the first year, I believe, the Rebbe Rayatz was a nomad in various different areas. He was in Lakewood for a little bit, was in Manhattan, in different hotels, and until he found his place, his home in 770, it took some time. But that also didn't come without hardship. At that time, Crown Heights was a very liberal Jewish neighborhood, filled with conservative and Reform Jews. And they despised the Orthodox, and especially the Orthodox from the world of Europe, with the lying of beard and the pious, despised it. It would completely plummet the real estate. And they would try and do everything they could to destroy the Rebbe Rayatz's signing of the contract on the new home, which now is known as 770. Until one of the leaders of the community there, when he was invited for the discussion of what to do to prevent this terrible catastrophe from happening, that a Jewish man that reminds them, a Jewish rabbi that reminds them of their mamaloshin is coming to live next to them. So one of the individuals who were there, one of the community leaders said, give me the papers. And he went on to say that this is an individual who was persecuted his whole life, and you see how broken he is from all the suffering. And here in the United States of America, you want to continue the persecution in a Jewish neighborhood? And he ripped it apart. And that was the end. Yeah, whatever it was that they were trying to do to prevent this from happening, and the sale went through. In about 1942 or 43, the Yeshiva Torah Vadas, as many institutions at that time during the period of the war, were going through a massive state of depleting of funds, a depression. It was a depression in terms of income, and it was literally a depression for the people involved. The head individual in Torah Vadas who was in charge of collecting the money, soliciting the funds for the yeshiva, became so depressed over the situation that he had a nervous breakdown. And a new person had to be, from within the yeshiva, had to be appointed to take this post. And he would publish an article, an ad in the daily newspaper of that time, and maybe it was the weekly newspaper, whatever it was, the Yiddish newspaper, asking people, telling them it's a dire situation. The banks are after us. If we don't come up with what today is worth $300,000, they're going to take the yeshiva. Now you have to understand, back then there were not that many yeshivas in New York. And Yeshiva Torah Vadas was the largest yeshiva at the time. Had hundreds of students. It actually, at one point, had a Lubavitcher yeshiva of the Moshe Dov Rifkin, the author of Bishkafta the Rabbi. It wasn't a Lubavitch yeshiva, it was a Litvish yeshiva, started by Reb Mendelovich, but nonetheless, they weren't anti-Lubavitch. In any event, The Rebbe asked his secretary to call up the individual whose number was mentioned in the ad and ask him how things are doing. And they called him up, the secretary called him up and asked him, and he said, things are very terrible right now. We have hardly raised any money, the deadline is approaching, there's not much we can do. But he felt very uneasy giving this information over to the Rebbe's secretary. As he knew, the Rebbe Rayaz is not a philanthropist. This wasn't a millionaire calling you, what's going on with the money. This was a person who was a Baal Chayv. The Rebbe Rayaz himself was in debt. So what exactly can he do to help solve the situation? And the Rebbe Rayaz persisted a few times to call again to find out what's happening. The day before the banks were supposed to come to take the yeshiva, the Rebbe Rayaz sent an emissary to bring an envelope that contained a check. And it was a check for the entire missing sum that they had. Whoa. Yeshiva Torah V'das. And the Rebbe sent a message with the messenger boy to the individual, this rabbi in Torah V'das Yeshiva was in charge of raising the funds. And he told him like this: when I was in Russia, I would not allow any Torah institution to be closed. People sent me letters from all over Russia. Money from mikvahs, money to send them a rabbi, money to send them a melamed, money to build a shul, money for svarim, money for siddur, money for matzahs, money for tzitzis. I never once asked them, what's your affiliation? To me, it made no difference if he was a Lubavitcher, a Kosovar, a Babavar, a Chernobyler, a Litvak, a Sfardi. It made no difference. Someone who was involved in Abatzas HaTorah, I wouldn't allow it to, chas v'shalom, not be successful. And I became a big Baal Chayv, and I have a lot of Yisurim from entering that situation. Many of my Talmidim that I sent died, and I sent them again. And just like I had Mesiras Nefesh V'Torah in Russia, I'm going to have Mesiras Nefesh V'Torah here in America. I thought here in America, we're here in a land of the free, in the home of the brave, where nobody is forcing anyone against religion. You don't have to hide your religion. Baruch Hashem, the golden in Medina, everyone has money. And the yeshiva can't raise $300,000 because people are indifferent. People could not care. He said, listen, I just wrote to you a check of everything I have. I linked everything I have. My whole future right now, I just put on the line for saving Yeshiva Torah V'das. This is not my money. This is borrowed money. Take it, reestablish the yeshiva, and please pay me back as soon as possible. This story was later told over. There's witnesses that were there when this story was said. It was told over by, I forgot the name of the individual, but he said this story over a few days before he passed away. I don't think it was Mendelovich. It was. I know he was involved. I don't think he was this person who received the actual check. Anyways, whoever it was said the story a few days before he passed away, and then one of the mashgichim in the yeshiva who was there said it in front of the whole yeshiva, and that's really how we know the story today. Is he, one of the people who were there, said over what was told over to him in public in front of the whole yeshiva, and the Rav said in front of the whole yeshiva Torah V'das that the Gemara states, "Ein ha-Torah miskayemes ela b'adam shemeid misatzmo elehu." The Torah is not established unless it's on a person who's willing to die for it. The person who's willing to give up his life for the Torah. And then he went ahead and he said the story that we just said of saving Yeshiva Torah V'das. When we think about different milos of the Rebbe Rayatz, there's of course amazing milos. But this idea to be unequivocally dedicated to every single Torah institution's success, whether they're part of your fraternity or not part of your fraternity, is novel, it's mind-boggling, and it's something that we need to emulate. I'll share with you another story that happened with the Rebbe. Chaim. This is fake Chaim, that's the real one. In 1971 in Montreal, there were two yeshivas. I think they were Talmud Torahs, not yeshivas, Talmud Torahs, elementary schools. One was a Lubavitch elementary school, which was successful and big, And the second was an elementary school that was run by Litvish individuals and did not have good luck. Yes, thank you. An individual named Moshe Zaltzman. I don't think they're related to the famous Zaltzman of Montreal, right? Same city, but I don't think there's a relation. Oh, that's Toronto. Okay. No relation. I don't think there's a relation. So this Moshe Zaltzman, he came from Bnei Brak. He came from Lita originally, grew up in Bnei Brak, and he eventually moved to Montreal. And when his son reached the age of mitzvahs, he was debating which institution to send him to. There were two options. There was Lubavitch and there was the Litvish. He didn't want to send it to the Litvish because the yeshiva was falling apart. It was a big mess. It was on the event of being closed. And he didn't really want to send him to Lubavitch because he's not a Lubavitcher. He doesn't want his kids to grow up in Lubavitch. He's not a Lubavitcher. He wants them to grow up with this Messiah of Lita, Lithuania. So he managed to get together a few parents who decided to make a break-off third yeshiva. It would make a third yeshiva. Start off from scratch, from fresh. And as you can imagine, the Litvish yeshiva was angry. The Lubavitch yeshiva was angry. Everybody was upset. A third one, someone else is coming to throw in his candidacy at the last moment. And they themselves did not manage to get enough students. They had a very small class, about 7 students, that's it. Tiny. So they had a meeting set up with the Lubavitch leaders of Montreal, including Rabbi Greenglass and others.
Kabbalist?
Possibly, I don't remember if that was mentioned. And the meeting was about how to facilitate an integration of these students into the Lubavitch yeshiva. So there's no need to open up another yeshiva because the Litvish yeshiva was going to crash anytime. Everyone knew that. So Lubavitch wanted to establish one main yeshiva for everyone, all Klal Yisrael in Montreal. So they were trying to get it before a new yeshiva starts. And they also didn't want to start a yeshiva with 7 kids. So they had a meeting about it. And Moshe Zaltzman asked the leaders that he was meeting with who are going to be the Malamdim in this new coalition yeshiva. Coalition of Ashkenazim, Litvish, Chabad. So they said, our guys, our people, we have plenty of Lubavitcher Chassidim. We're going to be the Mechanchim, the Magidei Shiurim in the yeshiva. He says, but what do you mean? We need some of our guys in there as well. It's not just Lubavitch students. That's the whole idea, is to bring it together. But they were unwilling to budge. We're going to have non-Lubavitch teachers in Lubavitch yeshiva. Not on my doorstep. So they said, if so, then we're going to have to open up another institution. They said, no way. Not happening. He decided to go straight to the boss. He went to the Rebbe. He had a yichidus with the Rebbe, I think it was Tafshin Lamed Gimel. And he told the Rebbe the whole situation. And he doesn't know how the Rebbe is going to react. It's kind of strange philosophy and strategy to go to the head of the side of the party who wants to be the main yeshiva in the city and ask him for advice of what to do about you opening up another institution. But he tried. He said that he had been by the Rebbe before, and he saw him as a very open and logical person that would see both sides. And the Rebbe told him like this. The Rebbe said, you're speaking so small. You're speaking about a little room, a little small institution. I want to see, they already had a name for it. They called it, I think it was Torres Chaim or Machne Chaim, something like that, the new institution. Let's say it was Machne Chaim. I want to see this new institution, Machne Chaim, be in a huge building, have air conditioners, which was at that time in Montreal, I guess, a big chiddush. I don't know why they need them. It's probably so cold there anyways. But maybe global warming, I guess. Global warming already began. So air conditioners, and there was something that he was shocked. He never heard of such a thing. He says, I want you to build the most magnificent yeshiva and Talmud Torah that everybody will want to send their kids there because it'll be so attractive. He was shocked. He came back to Montreal with the ammunition, and he told them, the leaders of the Chabad institution, your Rebbe advised us to build our own yeshiva. And they did. And that's till today, the second Litvish yeshiva in Montreal, under this name that I said.
Did it expand the way the Rebbe wanted?
That's what he says, yes. It has about, I think, 400 students. There's another name, Chaim, something like that.
Now it's called Yeshiva. It's big.
Elementary? What's the elementary school? The whole thing's called Yeshiva Gedolah? Okay. There you go. How many students?
Thousands.
Thousands?
Yeah, it's big, like near, 1,000. Like near. The biggest yeshiva in Moshe.
Wow. Oh, Niggin.
Bigger than Chabad? Yeah.
We're seeing the Niggin of the Rebbe, Yud Shvat. Oh, Elokeinu, Avinu, Malkeinu, Mosheinu, Yesheinu, V'yigaleinu. Ay, 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 Sheines v'karoi, v'rachmot, kochai, v'yikoreinu, v'yeshem, achadish, v'yisviya, v'yisvachem, v'yiloi, v'yikoreinu, v'yeshem, achadish, v'yisviya, v'yisvachem, v'yiloi. We're right now have the 70th year, and we're between year 70 and year 70 because next year is 70 years from Tafshin Yud Aleph. There's always a machlekes, which is the main day? Yud Shvat Tafshin Yud, or Yud Shvat, or Yud Aleph Shvat Tafshin Yud Aleph, and the Rebbe accepted the Nasias Begali. And the answer is that there's an advantageous aspect to both. And therefore, right now we're in year 70 of Yud Shvat, in the transition year to year 70 of Yud Shvat Tafshin Yud Aleph, which is the accepting of the Rebbe's Nasias. So usually the Yud Shvat Farbrengens and Lubavitch are dedicated to talking about his kashrus, connection to the Tzedek. In connecting to the Tzedek, there's many, many facets. And when we think about it and go through all the different facets, it's almost overwhelming. Let's first just talk about the facets of the actual action directives. What to do and what not to do that the Tzaddik told us. You go through a list, it's so much, so overwhelming. Where do I begin from? Where do I end? Not to mention when it comes to feelings of the heart, that over there's many, many different levels. So a person can look into the idea of iskashrus and be completely swallowed and flooded by how much he needs to do. So I think a good recipe for this is as follows. It's very important to emphasize that Chabad Chassidus demands perfection. For what's perfection according to Chabad Chassidus? To recognize that you're not perfect. Recognize that you're not perfect. Recognize that there are things that I need to do and I'm not there yet, and I don't know if I ever will be. To recognize that there are things that I need to do and other people are doing them and I'm not, and I look up to them for that. I take off my hat to them for that. I'll do it myself. For that statement, for you. Right, the Alter Rebbe teaches us a simple Torah in Likutei Torah, Parshas Netzavim, that everyone has to see Mailas Chaveroi. The Yetzer Hara, what does he tell us? Look at what everyone else is not doing. Everyone, Baruch Hashem, we're all Kasher Yidden. We all have certain things that we have more of a kachin than others, right? It's a Gemara, but my high the Zahir Tfei. But to use a person's Zahir Tfei, to use a person's inyan that he's more makbid in, to then as ammunition to say, wow, the other person who's not so much in that is not such a makusher, is of course the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh HaBahamis. And a person has to know that if such things come to his mind, he has to know this is wrong, it's a wrong hashkafa, it's a wrong way of thinking. Rather the opposite, everyone has to see in what area, the chlal of Yiddishkeit, and in his kashrus does the second individual excel more than me, and I should look up to him in that. In this, he's better than me. There's no such thing as a perfect person. And that is one of the greatest recognitions that Chabad Chassidus can give us, is to know who you are, know where you need to go to, and know how you're going to get there. But it begins with knowing to know who you are, and know that there's a lot of things that we should do and need to do to be makusher to the tzaddik that the Rebbe asked of us, and we're not holding there yet. But we know that. And we're not going to fool ourselves about it. Sometimes the Yetzer Hara enters into us, it's normal, it's natural. This idea of elitism, I've spoken about this in the past, where it becomes a competition, who's more makusher? Who's more makusher? Usually, the person who's most vocal about his feelings, he should be voted in as the most makusher. Sort of like the way they think it works in the Din Torah. The lawyer who screams the loudest has the best claims. Usually not. Usually the one who screams the loudest, that's all he has is his loud voice. So I want to discuss tonight that we're entering into an orientation into our new, I think, revolutionary learning program to discuss the Rebbe's directives regarding this and how, in my view, this is a very, very important point of discussion. And the goal that I would like to have, and I think we should have as a unit, is to, by next year's 70th year, for Yud Aleph, Tafshin Yud Aleph, Yud Shvat Tafshin Yud Aleph, we should be able already to show the Rebbe what we've produced. This year, 70 years, we showed the Rebbe what we've accepted, and next year we show what we produced. One of the things that the Rebbe Rayatz was Meiser Nefesh for is Torah learning. But not just any Torah learning, public Torah learning. Torah learning in shuls, in a public setting. In other words, it doesn't suffice for every individual just to learn in their own private home, but to come to a synagogue and establish a yeshiva, establish learning in a shul. The mimer that the Rebbe Rayatz publicized for when he was released from prison in Tafresh Pei Zayin, when he almost died, Al Kiddush Hashem, was on this topic. Asara sheyeshvim v'yiskim b'Torah. On this topic of the idea of there being 10 Yidden sitting and publicizing Torah and learning Torah. So this is not just another nice thing on the list of inyanim of iskashrus. This is vital. And that's why I think we see that in some communities it's not so successful, because the Yetzer Hara is working overtime. Yetzer Hara is working super hard Especially if he says that, listen, you can learn at home. Just stay home and learn. You learn even more at home. You can learn better. Who needs all the interruptions by the classes? The Yetzer Hara can come up with very good kindness. That the Yetzer Hara won't tell you. But the Rebbe Rayatz, this was his inyan. This was his inyan. There's a Ramban in this week's Parsha, Bashkacha Pratis. The end of Parsha's Boy, last week's Parsha. Mamash in the end of the Parsha, the Ramban says the following. The purpose of why we're in this world. So we know, Basi Lagani is the Dir B'Tachtainim, right? The Ramban says a different facet of Dir B'Tachtainim. Says the purpose of why we're in this world is so we all come to synagogue, study Torah together, and praise God in prayer. That's it. That's what it boils down to. All the Taryag mitzvahs, all the Torah mitzvahs, says the Ramban al Torah. You can look it up. I said it's the end of this week's parsha. The end of Parshas Boy, last week's parsha, which is the parsha of Shvat, Parshas Boy. Shabbos Mevarchim Shvat. This is it, to come to shul together, to praise God together, to learn Torah together. As there's 10 Yidden together, the Shechina is Shoyre. The Shechina resides. And it's a different experience. And it's being Mekadesh Shem Shemayim Barabim. It sanctifies God's name in public. And that's why the Rebbe Rayatz fought to establish Shiurim, public Shiurim in shuls. And this is something everybody has to take to their nefesh. They shouldn't say it's not my responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility to make it happen, make it be successful, and nobody can give an excuse. They can give an excuse to me and to other people. But what kind of excuse are we going to give if Neimisha Isa din v'cheshbon? The Rebbe as well, we should know, there's many mitzvahs of the Rebbe. Baruch Hashem, there's many mitzvahs. Many different mitzvahs that the Rebbe started, but there's also a mitzvah called mitzvah limud Torah. Mitzvah Talmud Torah. Besides for the mitzvah Talmud Torah, the Rebbe had a campaign of Torah learning. And the Rebbe bemoaned the lack of shiurim in shuls, and specifically, and this is where the Rebbe took it a notch further than the Rebbe Rayatz, the Rebbe spoke about the need of establishing public shiurim in shul in the field of halacha. Tens of letters and talks on this subject. One of the most famous talks that the Rebbe dedicated to this subject was on Yud Shvat, Tafshin Tesvav. It's about a 40-page Sicha just on this subject, where the Rebbe bemoans the fact that in the regular yeshiva system, a person begins learning depths of the Talmud, but he doesn't learn properly halacha. There's no proper seder in learning Jewish law to know what you're doing. So you come out an expert in knowing what you need to do. And the Rebbe said there's a lot of different excerpts from that Sicha. One of the excerpts that the Rebbe said is that the yeshivas are creating Rashi yeshivas that can make pulpulin in Baba Kama and Baba Basra. But you ask them a shayla and hilchos muktzah on Shabbos and they don't know what to do. And therefore, says the Rebbe, if you listen to me, we got to change the system. Don't start teaching Sugyas and Talmud until they know the basics. First, teach them halacha. Everyone should be baki in all the halachas that are tzrichas. And then you can go on to further in-depth learning. This doesn't, of course, negate Chas v'Shalom learning Gemara. Of course, it's important to learn Gemara. But in Hilchos Talmud Torah, we have a seder of precedence. What comes first? And it says that a person who has a limited amount of time, and we spoke about this in today's day, the halacha went out quite late. I'll tell you why it went out late in a minute, but it went out quite late. But over there, we mentioned how in Hilchos Talmud Torah, which is binding on all jury, it's not politics, it's not Satmar, it's not Lubavitch, it's not anything, it's halacha. That there's also halachas of what to learn. And in the halachas of what to learn, It says that someone who doesn't have enough time to dwell also in halacha and also in Talmud or other subjects, he has to dedicate all his time to halacha because he has to know how to serve God. Now, people who don't learn halacha don't learn this halacha, so therefore they don't do it. That's their cure. But this doesn't, of course, negate learning Talmud. Today, something very ashkacha pratis happened. I'll tell you what happened with the daily halacha. Today's topic was about Daf Yomi, the perspective of the Chlal of halacha and Daf Yomi, and in particular of the Chabad Rabbeinu. And there's a Sicha that the Rebbe said in 1988, which was unedited and censored, meaning taken off the charts, regarding this subject. And I got access to the unedited version of what people who were there put together, compiled together what they heard the Rebbe say. So as part of the article, I was putting together some of the Rebbe's statements regarding that was said in this uncensored, in this unedited and censored version regarding Daf Yomi, which is negative. I admit it's negative, but for honesty's sake, I never take sides. I put it as it is, right? I'm like a journalist. I can't only put one side out. I have to put in the truth. But I was in a little bit of a bind because the Rebbe censored it. So how can I go ahead and publicize it? So I said, I'll mention, it's already been publicized. I'm not bringing it to the world. These sikhs have already, people know about them. So I'll put it as part of the package deal, and I'll mention that the Rebbe didn't want this to be publicized. So after a number of hours of working on this article and finishing writing this part of the Rebbe's Sikha, Microsoft Word goes on strike. The whole thing suddenly shuts down. Boom. Shuts down. It took me, I lost many hours worth of work. Of course it's kachabatit, especially that I have it backed up on OneDrive, and that stopped working as well. A few things, I have many different backups for my work. Everything didn't work. So this has happened before, and the way to do it is a certain way. You go into the registry of office and you get it. I've done this every time at work. I went to do it this time. It recovered everything except for the 3 lines from that sikha. So I didn't print it. I didn't publish it. That's sikha. I guess when the Rebbe says, don't publicize it, you can do it willingly, not to publicize it or willingly. But yeah, you got the censored edition. The uncensored edition is up in heaven. The uncensored edition is gone.
The Rebbe's holding on to it.
I don't have it either. It's gone. But nonetheless, so what we discussed about Daf Yomi, you can look there. I'm not going to go into the shir regarding that here, into the Farbrengen regarding that here. But the point is that the Rebbe pushed tremendously to establish public shirim, and especially public shirim in the field of halacha. And in the famous Semicha that the Rebbe gave regarding getting Semicha, which we'll go into a little more later, the Rebbe mentions one of the reasons why. First of all, we know Chazal state that since the time of the exile, the Charbon, and Mikdash, the Shechina resides in the 4 cubits of halacha, meaning there's many subjects of Torah, and they're all holy, God forbid, all holy. But where does Hashem reside, right? All parts of the Beis HaMikdash were holy. All parts, the Azara, Ezras Kainim, Ezras Yisrael, the Heichel, the Kodesh HaKadashim. But where did the Shechina reside? Specifically, Bein HaKruvim, on the Arim, between the Kruvim. That's where it resided. So Chazal tell us, you want to know where? There's many holy areas of Judaism, of Jewish thought, of Jewish study, of Torah. Where do I reside during exile? Dalid Amis Shel Halach. That's where I reside. And the Rebbe explains there in the famous Sikha of getting Semicha that halacha has the power to change and affect the world. Other parts of Torah are very informative, and there's a chiyuv. No one's denying there's a chiyuv to learn other parts of Torah. Of course there is. A person has to be a baki in Tanakh. We publicized a while ago an article on this. You have to be a baki in Tanakh. You have to learn Tanakh every day. No one's negating that. But there's a very special, advantageous aspect in halacha that's not found in other sections of Torah. that it has control over the world. I'll tell you an example of a Maisa that happened with me personally in Beitar. It's a famous debate and controversy in Lubavitch. There's a number of them. I'm only going to mention one. Regarding the Alter Rebbe's Ksav, whether you should buy tefillin of Ksav Admar Hazakin, or known as Ksav HaMeyuchis, Ksav Alter Rebbe, Ksav Chabad, or Arizal. For tefillin, mezuzos, Sefer Torah. Which script? In the new book that I'm putting out on tefillin, we have a number of pages dedicated to the subject. But it's a known debate. My tefillin, my Rashi tefillin are Ksav Alter Rebbe, the script that the Alter Rebbe novelized. Now, there are people who vehemently oppose it. They don't oppose the Alter Rebbe, they oppose the new adaptation of it, saying that what was newly adapted is inaccurate. That is not the Alter Rebbe's Ksav. This is inaccurate. So one of the Rabban, the Rav in Beitar, Rav Shalom al-Kohen, who I was doing Shimush by, says after you get Semicha and you learn a lot, you start doing what's called apprenticeship. To be by a Rav, see how he paskins, etc. So I used to have a daily, some people would call it an argument, I more call it a discussion, but before Shachris. And one morning it turned to this subject. I never spoke to him about this before. I had no idea what his opinions were. And he told me, in my opinion, if you have Alter Rebbe's tefillin, you have to put them out without a bracha. If you have tefillin Ksav Alter Rebbe, you have to put them out without a bracha. And I was livid. And I began defending and arguing. Came time for davening. There was no time. I had to go put on my tefillin. He went to put on his tefillin. I realized in the middle of Psuke de Zimra, I forgot to put on my tefillin. I was sitting there just with a talus. Never happened. The halach is, in that case, if you remember, you put it on without a bracha and only make a bracha between Yishtabach and Yitzhar. So I put on my tefillin without a bracha.
Unconsciously.
Yeah. But this emphasized to me, if a Rav gives a psak, it makes an impression on the world. With a bracha till today.
For one day.
For one day. I didn't ask him as a psak. It was a discussion. It was a discussion. Usually, yeah. There's another story that I heard from Rabbi Fegelstock from Buenos Aires. He's told this over a number of times. But it also emphasizes this point. There was an individual in Buenos Aires who was having issues. I don't remember if he said what the issues were, but there were issues that he wrote to the Rebbe about. And the Rebbe replied to him that he should check his tefillin. Now, he didn't like sending his shilas to Rabbi Fegelstock for whatever reason. Especially Rabbi Fegelstock is renowned for being super machmir and stam and safras. So he said it was a lost cause sending it to him. So he decided to send it to a Rav in Crown Heights. It was reviewed, a Sefer in Crown Heights. It was reviewed, found to be kosher. He wrote to the Rebbe. Problems continued. And the Rebbe wrote to him to have it checked by Meir Hira. Meaning not every Sefer is a Paisik. That's something for everybody to know. Just because somebody is a Sefer doesn't make them a Rav to be able to paskin shilas. And unfortunately, we see a lot of problems that happen because of this. Just because he's a Sefer, even if he runs a big institution of Safras, doesn't make him a Rav, doesn't make him someone who can paskin. So the Rebbe asked him to be sent to Meir Hira. So we asked one of the Rabbanim in the Shchuna to review it, who knows Safras, to review it and paskin on it. And he says it's fine, it's kosher. He wrote to the Rebbe again. Problems continued. And this time the Rebbe wrote to him, have it checked by a Meir Hira of your community, the Mara de Asra of your community. So he had no choice. He was running away. He sent it to Rav Fegelstock, and within 1-2 days he got a phone call. You'd fill in a puzzle. he has a very specific sheet of how he rules regarding one of the letters, how they have to be written. And it wasn't written according to his understanding. He said it's possible. So he says from this story that you see how a psak din of a mother das of a Rabbi community has effect on the community. But this is all part of the general scope of how halacha changes the reality, and halacha has an ability that other parts of there do not, to change the metzius. And that's why the Rebbe pushed so much. The Rebbe pushed so much for signing and declaring that Mashiach has to come, and specifically by Rabbanim and Meira Heiraz, as they have the ability to make a change in the world. And this is one of the reasons why the Rebbe said we need more rabbis. We need more people to join the bandwagon of helping mold the world, helping change the perspective. So now the question is, may the real rabbi please stand up. Who can be a rabbi? Who am I? So first of all, someone who thinks he shouldn't be a rabbi, he's not befitting, he's usually the best candidate. The person who jumps to say, then we have to really see if he's fit. But someone who feels he's not fit, that's usually the best candidate. He's taking it with its proper, awesome reality. He's looking at it properly and will take it seriously. But in the Semicha that the Rebbe spoke about in the early years, Semicha, I want to give over a few of the things that the Rebbe said in that talk. Let's say a nigun while I get it open. No, Bala Menagnim. Okay, this Sikha of the Rebbe was said in Chaf Dalet Tevis Tafshin Yud Beis, 1952. Yud Beis, 1952. The Rebbe in the beginning of the talk spoke about the custom of the Rebbe Rayatz to receive Semicha before his wedding. He got married at age 17, he received Semicha from a few Rabbanim beforehand. And so in the talk, the Rebbe explained, it's understood, I'm translating, that this custom, being that it has been publicized to everybody, to the public, that you need to get smicha before your chasana, therefore it is a directive for every individual that you need to get smicha before you get married. And the reason for it is not because everybody needs to become a rabbi, one of the most hated positions by Jewish mothers, right? Everyone knows the famous joke. My son's a doctor, my son's a lawyer, my son's a rabbi. Right? But because Kivin Shali'itim Tkufes, because quite often we have to understand a rabbi of a community, a rabbi who paskins, he has a very limited job. He receives the least amount of shilas in the community, collectively. You know who receives the most? The person in each home. You. When you're in your own house, many times we make decisions. And often we don't even know the decisions that we've made because we didn't know it was an issue to make a decision about, but the decision was already made. We receive the most questions. He receives the hard questions. He receives the questions that people know are questions. But the questions that people don't know are questions. Who paskins on those questions? The people. So quite often a question comes up in the home in halacha, and it's not possible to go all the time to call up the Rav. And therefore we need to create a Rav in every single person's home. Meaning, first and foremost, Rabbi here's in essence saying, you feel intimidated by the position of being a rabbi, but guess what? You're already a rabbi. But before you get Semicha, you're a rabbi who may be paskening wrongly because you don't know. So now become a rabbi who paskens correctly because you know. And therefore, based on this, we need to publicize that it's proper prior to building a home to receive smicha. So now you may say, well, I should be talking in the yeshiva. What am I talking here for? Everyone here is married, right? It's over. Almost everyone. Meretz Hashem.
Join the club.
And Meretz Hashem, soon.
I mean, that's fine.
Right? But the Rebbe then continues and says, and so too, those Avreichim and Yungalite who are already married, the directive from this is that they need to go get smicha. So everyone's included. There's no exemptions here. Now let me explain a little bit of the Rebbe's intent of what he meant earlier, being a Rav in your own home. There's two types of Rabbanim. One is a Rav of a community who has to paskin shilas, which means sometimes he gets easy questions, things that are explicitly written, but usually God is not so kind to him. And he gives him questions that make him work hard, because it's not black and white. So he has to have a lot of back knowledge and knowing how to apply the situation on the shilah to the case, to the halach. The purpose of this smicha that the Rebbe is referring to is not for that. It's not to create 1,000 and 1,000,000 Meir Heiraz who paskin for communities, but rather that people be aware of where there are halachic issues, where there are shilas that come about. So you may say, well, if that's the case, then he's not a real Rav. He's not a real expert. He just knows what to ask on. So there's a halach in Shulchan Aruch that says he is a Rav. It's brought down in Hilchos Shchita, Siman Aleph in Yeridei. A person who never learned how to shecht is puzzled to shecht because he doesn't know the halachas, doesn't know what to be careful about. And even if he shechted in front of you, many times he saw he did a good job, he can't be trusted any other time because you don't know. He doesn't know the laws. He didn't learn it. Now, to what extent must he know the laws, the Shulchan Aruch asks? To what extent? So it says the following. So long as he knows it good enough to understand where a question would come up for him to go ask a rabbi. In other words, a certified shaykhet who's being trusted on the job, in essence, he is right now being the Rav of the Shechita. We have to understand the rabbi in charge of the slaughterhouse, while he does have some pull, most of the kashrus is being taking place between two eyes, between the shaykhet and the chicken, or the shaykhet and the cow, and the rabbi in charge has no clue what's going on there. He's not standing over every single shaykhet. He can't see if drissa or chalada or all these things are being done. 99% of the kashrus of shechita is being trusted on the shaykhet. So he's in essence the biggest rabbi of the shechita. And halacha says if he has enough knowledge to understand where there are shilas, good enough. He doesn't have to have everything clear. Know the answers for everything. So this is, I believe, the source for the Rebbe's statement. That the idea here is, in this smicha, in this rabbanis, is for people to be aware of questions that may come up. The Rebbe continues, and therefore my intent in this receiving of smicha is that people at least know the actual action of the halachas, amaisa sheyasun, for them to know how to lead their lives, which includes sections of Arachaim and Yeridea and some chapters in Even Ezer, But first and foremost, Orach Chaim and Yerideh, that they have to be an expert in. And the Rebbe emphasizes, let's emphasize that it's not so relevant, the receiving of the certification, the certificate, but rather the ability for him to receive it. Meaning that he worked on it, he learned the material, and therefore is befitting of receiving the certification. In continuation of the Sikh, everything goes into explaining how a psak halacha controls the world. It becomes the bailus over the world, as we explained before, of the effect that halacha has onto the world. So, with this said, it came to my mind a little while ago, I would say I think 4 or 5 months ago, I'm not sure exactly, of trying to upstart a new learning system here in our community, especially working with the Tzemach Tzedek. Baruch Hashem, we've had the 2 shiurim on Orach Chaim and other subjects for already a few years, and many of you show up, Baruch Hashem. But I know today there's a lot of different Yetzaharas, and one of the things today the Yetzahara needs, he needs to see certification, he needs to see accomplishment, he needs to see something structured. The Nefesh HaBahamis, this is how he works. So, in other words, that just to tell someone, come learn the Shema today, it doesn't sell. And it's okay, we have to be open to reality. So it came to my idea, which I discussed with Yehuda, how long ago? 2 months ago? Whenever it was, about merging the current shiurim that we have into a real structured Semicha program together with the Semicha program that I already run concurrently. Before I begin explaining a little bit about it and giving an orientation to you guys about the program, I just want to mention that when I was thinking about starting this, I had a lot of deliberations, and I wrote into the Rebbe Nigras Kodesh for a bracha about whether to start this series of shiurim. So this is the first time I'm publicizing this. This is the letter that I opened up to. It's I have no words. I'll read it. You'll see for yourselves. I have no words. I'll start from the end and then go back to the beginning. Shalom uvracha. Your letter from the 11th of Kislev has been received. And I am happy to hear that you are establishing new Torah classes in public. The letter was addressed to Yud Goldstein. Give it out, let me see it. Take it. It's not made for me, it's made for the community. I can't give a class to myself. I don't know. This was a letter written, when was it written? Tafshin Yud something? What's the date?
Tafshin Zayin.
Tafshin Zayin, okay. Tafshin Zayin to a Yud Goldstein somewhere, maybe in Europe, about establishing public shiurim. So this is the letter I opened up to when I wrote about this subject. Okay, it's okay if they don't want to see it.
The evidence?
So I'm going to explain a little bit of how it's going to work. This is it. We're going to have a weekly class. The way the structure of it is as follows. Thus far, Rebbe, thus far, we've been doing weekly classes here in the Tzemach Tzedek, and I as well run a international Semicha program online. Home study Semicha program, we have about 60 students, a few here, that are enrolled in the program. And the idea is to merge them together for a selective group. I'm only able right now to handle 10 applications per course. We're having 2 courses that are going to run simultaneously. Everyone has the option of signing up to 1 or signing up to 2, whatever they want. And the idea is as follows: to have a class once a week for about an hour to an hour and a half. We'll see how to juggle that. And we'll progress every single week throughout the study course, throughout the curriculum, throughout the material. And as we finish the selected chapters in the material, you're going to be enrolled in the course online and be able to do assignments and take quizzes as everyone in the Semicha program does, on the international online Semicha program does. So that will test your knowledge. And the real purpose of that is, that's what the tests are there for, is to, for me to understand that they understand the information. And I really love it when they get things wrong, because now I know I have to explain to them something that they misunderstood. If they got everything right, maybe there's something they didn't understand and I didn't catch it. So when they get something wrong, it makes them very happy. Oh, Baruch Hashem, I can clarify to them now. And so this is the structure of how it works. We go through every single chapter. Let's say, for example, we're going to start a course in Basar V'Chalab, one of the most renowned Semicha subjects, but super important for basic knowledge. And in my Semicha program, one of my big innovations were, and I spoke to Bezin Rabbani Chabad before I started this many years ago about doing so, is that I put in the option of learning other practical subjects. In most Semicha programs, including the one I went through, I learned Melicha, I learned Taruvas, which are very, and Treifus, which are very impractical subjects today. Very impractical subjects, unless you personally plan on being a sheikhet, or a baidek, I should say, Hilchos Treifus, or you plan on being, someone who works as a mashkiach and a shlacht has to know Hilchos Melicha. It's necessary to know for a very few select group of people. So the whole purpose of the Semicha, the Rebbe says, is not so you can show off that you know what rabbis in the 1800s had to know. The whole purpose is so you know what to do. So which is more important, to learn how to say Maida'ani, to learn how to wash your hands in the morning? Or you don't know how to wash your hands properly because you never learned the laws properly. But someone who has a Shaila and Melicha, you can tell them Machlikas and Rishon. What's the Rebbe's intent? What's the purpose? So obviously, a person has to know the basics. So this is why we opened up the option of learning other subjects as well. And the idea is to begin with Basar V'Chalav and Shabbos. 2 courses simultaneously, one in Basar V'Chalav with a shir once a week, the second in Hilchos Shabbos once a week. And the goal, there's no guarantees, it all depends on how far we get and how much we can progress, is to be able to finish each course within a year. That means that someone who joins 2 courses will be able to complete it within 2 years. Someone who joins only 1 course per year, that means it will take about 4 years to complete it. But 4 subjects.
4 subjects.
Right. So if we're doing 2, if you're doing 2 a year, 2 times 2 is 4. But the truth is, our Semicha program works on a credit system, and everyone who's interested, I strongly suggest going onto my website, going onto the Semicha section of the website. It's right in front of you on the right-hand side. You just click on it and read the information there of any information you want to see. But this is going to be a little different. This is why I'm explaining it now, because we're going to be doing it as molded together with the shiurim. As it is now, all the students, they progress on their own pace. This was going to be structured with a shir, but it's going to be a weekly shir, once a week. So it's not too fast, but a person will need to stay in pace with us. If a person falls behind, they'll just remain in the regular course and need to progress on their own. But this is the option that's being offered. I think this will create, number one, a great motivation for people to come, to show up, to learn in public. What nachas we can give the Rebbe next year. 70 years of the Rebbe's Nesius, Yud Aleph. We say, look, we have now a strong shir of people fulfilling your directives that you wanted. We're not the best. We're not doing everything. I agree. There's so much things we still have to do. But this is something we took, and we're going to do it in Mesiras Nefesh. This is something we took, and we're going to push ourselves for it. And after each completion of each course, we give out a certificate for the completion of the course. After the completion of the course, we require an 80 GPA, 80% GPA. It's pretty high, but the students get there. I've never had to fail a student. He eventually gets there. He has to take a retest. He eventually gets there. And So after the completion, there's a test that we're going to have we have a rabbi who works with us already and probably going to continue to work with him, but maybe we'll be able to integrate other rabbanim in the community to come and join us for the test. And hopefully this will be a big Kiddush Shem Lubavitch and a big Kiddush Shem Shemaim for the Rebbe and for the Eibishter. And I hope everyone is enthusiastic, and if anyone has questions, I'll address the questions of anything they would like to know.
Go back over the topic of how long it would take for one to let me ask the question.
Again, this is all very abstract. I absolutely cannot tell how long it will take. It's dependent on, I've never given it in this series of once a week, okay? And as we know, once a week, we have to review from the previous week. It's not like every single day. So there's some review that has to be done, etc. So it's hard to tell, but from my assessment of what we've done in our previous classes, in these two classes, it's about a year, give or take a year, to go through a full subject with a once-a-week class.
So if you do two, you do.
That means you've completed, let's say we do Shabbos and Basav Challah, that would mean at the end of the year, hopefully after 12 months, maybe even earlier. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But hopefully a person will have completed of his 115 required credits for what we can call graduation, certification. He would have completed 25 as Basav Challah. Shabbos is, this section Shabbos that I want to start with, is 40, 65. So he's halfway there.
Would you be able to take an examination from the Rabbanut on this topic?
So no, this again, my Semicha program it's very focused, and our focus is very simple. Our focus is not to create pulpit rabbis. Our focus is not to create people who can start working for the Memshelet Israel as rabbis who receive a 30,000 shekel maskeret. Straight up, that is not what we are here for, and we are not accredited by them. Nobody is, except for Heichal Shlomo. They're the only ones who are accredited by the Rabbanut. Their tests are extremely hard and also don't focus on the same material that we do. They focus on a lot more abstract material. They look for lumdus. We look for practicality.
Mm-hmm.
I have failed people who have passed the Rabbanut tests because they didn't learn it down to earth. Semicha can be learned very abstract, getting involved in all the opinions and rishonim, and bottom line, you don't know where you are. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how to rule. This program, the program I started, and that's why I started it. There's many Semicha programs out there. The reason why I started this is because there was a vacuum and a lack of programs that focus specifically on this Sicha. Know what to do. Know what to do in your house. Know where the Shaila comes up. Know the basics of Orach Chaim and Yerodei. So that's why it started, and that's why we have, I would say it's less challenging than the Semicha program of the Rabbanut, but it's also more rewarding. It's more rewarding from a halachic perspective.
Will it be online too?
1 second, yeah?
How much are you going to try and cover in a week?
Whatever we can. Where it's a class, there's questions in a class. We'll see. We're going to try to cover as much as we can. But we've done this in the past. Whatever, from measuring from past shiurim, we've been able to cover, pretty much within 1 year, we've been able to cover a section. 1 year is about, let's say, 50 shiurim.
And if you can sit for Shabbos, is there, even though Shabbos is longer?
Say it again?
Even though Shabbos is longer?
Well, Shabbos is split in two. I split Shabbos in two.
Oh.
We only do one section.
So it'd be one section of Shabbos per week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Will this be online too?
Yeah, you have to have access to the are you asking the shiurim?
Yeah.
So the shiurim here, just like this Farbrengen, are always broadcasted
Right.
on the Tzemach Tzedek website. But for students that are enrolled, it's going to be, we have a conference room in our LMS system, learning management system, where it's broadcasted in, where you can interact as a student, you can ask questions, so it's a lot more informative and learning friendly.
Would there be assignments after the meeting?
Every single conclusion of a chapter or section is an assignment and a test. So after you've concluded, let's say we've concluded learning chapter 87 in Basav Challah, it talks about all the general rules, very interesting chapter. So then there's an assignment, which is basically where you teach me for a change. You do your own research, and students have done some great jobs on this. It's A lot of students had a lot of fun with the assignments. And so you do your own research. It's an essay. And then once that is handed in, then you move on to the quiz. It's an online quiz. It's taken online in the system. It's part of it is automatically graded American-style questions. Part of it is essay questions that I have to manually grade. And that's how it works. And you progress chapter at a time. Yeah.
Would it be beneficial? I would imagine you don't have like Chavrusos out there in the world together learning. Maybe you do, and maybe you do in this kind of session. But would it be beneficial to have a Chavrusa locally to go over?
Of course it's beneficial. The Chavrusa is always beneficial. The question is it practical? So if it's practical, then of course it's amazing to have a Chavrusa, sure.
But it's designed to be able to go through it. You can take it home and just go on.
Most of the students, for various reasons, don't have a Chavrusa. It's just not tenable. It's not, yeah.
What are the source texts for say Shevat?
So first and foremost is the compilations I have published, my books. That's the main text that the students study from. My books are and whoever knows them knows them. Whoever doesn't know them, they are a compilation of the halachas in the Shulchan Aruch, as well as all the necessary achreinim till the latest achreinim of today and the different halacha l'maisa questions that come up, which is an example of where we swerve from other Semicha programs, is where they will end with the Shulchan Aruch, we begin with the Shulchan Aruch, meaning the Shulchan Aruch is the basis of then applying to practical law. It depends on the section. In Shabbos, we learn from the Alter Rebbe. In Bas V'Chalov, there's no Alter Rebbe, we learn from the Mechaber. Every subject to its relevance, to what's available.
When is it starting?
Honestly, as soon as we have 10 committed individuals who sign up for the course.
Since I've lived here, since I've been in Tsfat, I've always every year traveled out of the country for a few months. And that's going to continue or increase. How will it be for a person that's traveling away from town?
Ideally, this is, again, it's an online program, so all of our students right now are international besides for a few. But most of our students are international. Okay. And they have access to everything online.
So the test,
if you don't have access to online, if let's say you're going, I don't know, you're traveling to, who knows where, somewhere where it's a third world country, no internet access. You're right, I don't have an answer for you. I don't provide internet access for them, but if you do, you will have all the access.
So we need to bring the books with us, the textbooks.
The information is also available online. Yeah, all the information is available online as well.
What will happen to the current shear that you have on Tuesday night?
Right now, what the plan is to it's going to merge into this Semicha shir. The truth is that, I'll tell you a little secret, the shirim that we've been having on Tuesday and Sunday is very much similar to the same information, not the same topics, of course, but if we were learning those topics for Semicha, that's what we would be learning, what we learned in those classes. It's just that over there, it wasn't, there was no obligation, there wasn't any, structure, and that's the purpose of this new system. This new system is to make...
This system is going to displace the current shearing?
It's going to be shiurim, and anyone who wants can show up to these shiurim. It's shiurim open for the public. When I said that 10 applicants, I don't mean for the learning Torah. Whoever, Baruch Hashem, we should have 100 people. It's just that every assignment and quiz is physical time for me to need to grade and escort, and I'm a human being. We have a limited amount of that time, so therefore that's how much right now I'm able to have open for. So that's why I mentioned 10. But regarding just learning, everyone's invited to continue coming and learning, and if they want to sign up for the next time we restart, that's fine. Whatever, maybe then we can increase. Maybe then one of the students can become one of the helpers. What we have on the site, we have teacher's assistants, a TA. So someone can become a TA.
So just to clarify completely your question, right now we have Shabbos Shir already, right? We stopped doing the appropriate calendar time. So that'll continue. We're going to continue with Shabbos.
The Shabbos Shir will continue, but we're going to start from the course of Shabbos, which is starting from Siman Shin Yud Gimel. So we're going to skip from where we are now to Shin Yud Gimel and do that course.
The change will be that Bas V'Chalach will be at the same time, and maybe we'll propose it will be a Tuesday night, just when the end-to-end Shulchan Aruch shir is now, or during the beginning day in Shulchan Aruch, that would be on hold.
Listen, last week, we started off with Hilchos Tzitzis. It was our first year in Hilchos Tzitzis. And I was amazed by the enthusiasm. There were so many people who came. That was the Lashon D'Chus. I was joking, being sarcastic. So, it's Hilchos Tzitzis. I think it's amazing. I wrote a book on it, but people didn't come. So we need to make it. We need to work with the people, right? So Bas V'Chalav is a very important subject. I've taught it also in the women's class. We're going to be learning very practical things to know, and that's one of the main sections that you need to do for Semicha.
What about Rashi script?
There's no impediment. There's no Hebrew language impediment in my course. We work with you, meaning that all the information is all provided by the text and by the classes, and the reading inside is complementary to that. It's not obligatory. Okay, so just to close the subject, if no one else has any more questions, yes.
So, how many hours a week do you think it would involve in,
Again, the shir itself per course is about an hour to, I'll have to see, we'll have to negotiate this, but between an hour to an hour and a half. Let's just say an hour or an hour and a half. A week, 2 courses, it's 2 days, hour and a half for each of them, so it's about 3 hours. Past that, no, so it's going to go with the classes. You can go ahead, you can learn more, you can learn again, you can review, but ideally someone who just comes with the classes will be able to eventually finish the entire course by the end of the year. They'll obviously have to take their own time to do the assignments, which can be several hours of research. They'll have to take their own time to review and take the test. I don't take the test for the students. Someone once asked me if I would.
10 years ago, I was involved in the purification program.
Yes.
And I think it took about maybe 10 hours a week.
It's very different. Our systems are very different. We have a very different system than Purification. I know Purification. I work with a lot of their students. It's a very different system. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. We're different. We're not the and the way the initial program works is every student can choose how much they want to invest. Some students invest an hour a week, some an hour a day, some a half hour a day. But with this is going to be a shir, a live shir every single week that we're going to go through it together as a group.
The assignments, though, common, those are things you do independently.
Correct. That you do independently in the course. Regarding tuition and all those things, again, please look up on my website. Regarding that, it's all the information is there. You can also speak to Yehuda Sugar for scholarships, options if you need. You can speak to him. Subsidies.
Not very expensive anyway.
Okay. Any questions regarding the money aspect, you can talk to me or to Yehuda Sugar. But all the information you know is pretty much there, and also the applications. It's very important for applications to be filled out. You don't have to fill out. I know all of you basically, so information such as references you don't have to fill out, but the other things is important for us to have, and there's a disclaimer we have everyone sign. But I want to make a very important emphasis. The classes are also open for people who don't necessarily want Semicha, but they want a structured course of learning. We have students who aren't there for Semicha, either because they told me straight up, I'm not interested in the Semicha part, or they didn't pass the threshold. We don't have such a high threshold, but someone who's not yet fully religious, for example, someone, whose wife doesn't cover her hair, so we tell them, listen, at the current state, we cannot endorse you as a rabbi. We cannot ordain you a rabbi. We can't. We have limitations. So a person like that has joined the Semicha program just for the learning curriculum, and it gets certification at the end of completion of each subject, but is not in there for the actual rabbinical ordination. So that's also an option available for whatever reason somebody's not.
Who gives the ordination?
So I signed on the Semicha certificate, including Rabbi Uri Gamson. He is a Rav of Musmach from the Rabbanut. He was a Rav of one of the communities in Chulon, and then became a Rav in Berlin under Rabbi Tachta. Now he's living here in Israel. He's a shliach in a yeshuv.
I just received a message 3 minutes ago from a friend in the US whose brothers are very well known in the Lubavitch community. He's probably less known, but famous family name that I won't mention. And he asked, what's the cost for the course? And this is a serious, yeah, he's a.
So I want to
just like
mention,
that.
we're opening
Already
first
reaching
dibs
people
to you. First
10,000,
dibs is
8,000
to the
miles away.
physical people in Tsfat. First dibs. Okay.
10 people.
Yeah.
Could be 5 from here. Interests that are out here, the best interested could be doing long distance. There could be long distance people and together with people. We really want to
Yeah.
get as many possible.
He's hard to spot anyway. They're coming to face up.
Okay, I want to conclude with a story. This is, yeah.
Sidorovsky, never heard of it.
Again, so you know what? How about this? You'll send out an email. Okay, actually, okay, the next step is as follows. I printed here a form that you can just leave your email, okay, your name and your email, and we'll put you on a list to receive the information. If you're interested, please write your name and email on it. And Yehuda, I'll have you put it in the list and you'll send out, I'll send you the information.
Emailable also, the application can be emailed.
This is, again, people who are interested, you want more information, you want to see more about it. This is the list that we're going to be working with to send out.
The application is available how?
So I'm going to send, it's on my website, but I'm going to do an abridged version for this group. So I'm going to send you the application form. You'll send it to the list.
I think you already answered the classes.
You don't have to send your application if you want to join. We already have it. I don't need doubles.
No.
You could be your TA.
Yeah.
The classes are going to be on the conference section section?
The classes will be here. We want people to show up. We want to get 10 Jews who show up and bring the Shekhinah to the classes. But someone who couldn't show up a day, etc., so okay, they can see it from the conference room, yes.
So they will be posted in the conference?
Yes, they will be in the conference room, yes.
What days are the Shevat?
Right now, so everything's open for flexibility based on my schedule and based on other people, the applicant's schedule is what they're able to do. But right now, the way it is, and that's how we're going to set it unless there is need for a change, and we're open for that, is Sunday morning till Shabbos at 10:20. And Sunday morning, Shabbos 10:20, and what we would start as Basar v'Chalav is Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock.
Were they pretty tough for people?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm first opening it to physical people here in Tzfat that can join. Remember, we spoke about the Shekhinah doesn't come through the internet. It's a limitation that the internet can't solve. Google will not solve this problem. 10 Yidden that are in the conference room, the Shekhinah is not found on Google. No. Not only that, we've discussed in the past, but he's not even considered to fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. When you hear me physically from my mouth speak, and when I hear you speak Divrei Torah, we both fulfill the mitzvah, the rights of Talmud Torah. But when we hear Mr. Hangouts or Mr. YouTube speak, he's not Jewish. The creator is Jewish. The owner is Jewish, but he's not Jewish. This is Lenovo. Lenovo's a Jew.
Right.
Very Goyish name.
Where's the source?
So one second. So when Lenovo speaks the words that I'm saying to the people listening, they are learning Torah, of course, but they're not fulfilling the mitzvah, the rights of Talmud Torah. That's not it's halacha in Hilchos Talmud Torah of the Alter Rebbe. What malasot?
And there's shofars or something like that.
It's halacha in Hilchos Talmud Torah of the Alter Rebbe without any debate. It's unanimous. Even unanimous rulings we want to turn into controversy. This is unanimous. Finally, everybody agrees on
They
something.
didn't have Lenovo then.
All the poskim agree that a radio, an internet, transmission, etc., anything that's not live, meaning in front of you, is not considered Shemei Ka'ina. That doesn't mean you can't answer Amen Heshmei Rabbo or Amen if it's happening the same exact time. That's something else. That's something else. But it's the issue, it's not Shemei Ka'ina. No. That's why you can't be Yaitz Megillah. You can't be Yaitz Avdallah. You can't be Yaitz these things from these transmissions. So you got to hear his voice. You can't be Yaitz mitzvah from a telephone. The telephone says Avdallah to you. You can be Yaitz Avdallah. A telephone's chayiv in mitzvahs. He had a bar mitzvah. So we have to, do they need us out of here already? They need to set up, or do they need us out of here already to set up, or can we continue?
Finish the story. We got 5 more minutes and we gotta clear up. We're finishing the story.
I didn't start the story.
What are they
So
The
the story is as follows. This is a fascinating story. It's almost what I would call unbelievable, and I wish there would be more information about it, but I wasn't able to uncover more information. But it's written by a very reliable author. In the he was the head of the Mizrahi Ha'olami in the 1950s and prior. Forgot his name, and he wrote a book on the Neidah B'Yehuda. So this is a story he writes on the Neidah B'Yehuda. He has a famous book he wrote on the Neidah B'Yehuda. And this is a book he writes. This is a story he writes in the Neidah B'Yehuda.
What is it, the Nova?
The Neidah B'Yehuda, Rabbi
Neidah
Yecheskel
B'Yehuda.
Landau, the famous Talmudic scholar and Pesach that we live off his words till this very day.
Okay.
So the Neidah B'Yehuda, and this is connected with how the Psak of a Rav, how halacha has an effect on the world. The Psak of a Rav has an effect on the world. The Neidah B'Yehuda, before he became known as the rabbi of Prague, Czechoslovakia, he was a rabbi in another city. And in this other city, he had the rich people had some beef with him, as they say. The way it worked was that there were taxes on the rich, and there were uneven taxes. The rich paid more. People who had more money received a greater percentage of taxation than people who didn't, so they can support the Talmudei Torah and the Moistus in the city. And Yecheskel Landau, after seeing the budget situation, decided to tax the rich people 2 or 3 times the amount that they were used to. So all the wealthy people of Prague gathered together, and they decided to appoint 3 emissaries to go to the Neidah B'Yehuda and tell him, either you back off this legislation, or you're out of a job, you're impeached. That's what they told him. We won't pay your salaries anymore. Right? Who pays his salary? The poor people. The cow. Who gives the money to the cow? The wealthy. So we'll cut off your source of income. So the Neidah B'Yehuda told them, it's a shkacha pratis, because 2 days ago I just received a ksav kabbalah from the community of Prague. I was already appointed the chief rabbi of Prague. And I plan on going. I just didn't tell anyone yet. But now I'll take the opportunity and I'll let you know. But he said the following. This tremendous chutzpah of yours is going to cost you badly. And again, I don't know, this is what's written. Well, the accuracy of the details, we'll have to leave it up to the author. This is the psak he gave. He's told the first delegate that opened up the discussion that he wouldn't pass his year of living. He would die. The second, that he would lose all of his money. And the third, that he would have a son that at the age of bar mitzvah would become an apikoros.
That was the good news.
The third one, he left to Prague. I have to make the story short so we can move on with the Farbrengen to the Hebrew Farbrengen.
Where was his,
So,
living college?
ask the author. The author is already Noilam Haba, so by Tchias HaMesim, prepare your questions for him. Or just ask the Neidah B'Yehuda yourself.
Okay.
Even better. So the Neidah B'Yehuda moved, and as he said, began happening. The first individual got into a wagon accident and died. The second individual had his business burned down. And the third individual had a son born to him after many years. And he was very worried of what would happen. Naturally, he saw what happened to his 2 friends. In short, his son was sent to the regular cheder, and the Melamed one day called for a meeting with the father. So you know what happens when the Melamed calls for a meeting, something's up. So he thought he was going to get bad news, especially with the curse that the Neidah B'Yehuda said. Instead, the Melamed tells him, I've never seen such a genius. I've never seen someone so quick and so ingenious in Torah learning. He's excelled and graduated all of the classes. So it was very good news. And so he excelled in his learning, was known as the Eli of Prague, of the city. I forgot the name of the city. And at age 12, they began really worrying of what's going to be. 13, the Neidah B'Yehuda says, age 13, that's it. It's going to be such an embarrassment, such a shame. So the parents decided to send him out of the community. If the Gzeira happens, worst case, it'll happen. We won't know about it. Nobody in the community will know about it. Nobody will know. So for it to happen in the community is be the biggest shame, the biggest embarrassment. So they sent him off to learn another yeshivas, and lo and behold, Hashgacha Pratis brought him to the renowned yeshiva of Prague, who the Noida Yehuda was the Rosh Yeshiva. He began, there's a long story how he got accepted, but he got accepted after the Noida Yehuda tested him, so he was a genius. And Noida Yehuda actually housed him in his own home. And a few months before his bar mitzvah, his wife told him, he's already, back then they got married early. It says in Shulchan Aruch, Even Ezra Siman Aleph, you can start getting married at age 13. So he already started getting shidduchim. He was known as a big Eli. Everybody wanted to grab him. The new prodigy. It was the first draft pick. So the wife in the Yehuda says, why should we be worse? We have a nice girl, Ruchel, our daughter Ruchel, who needs also to find a husband who's at the age of marriage. Make a shidduch with her, with this boy. And so it was closed that they would get married on the day of his bar mitzvah. The wedding and bar mitzvah would be on the same day.
Oh boy.
As it was customary, right, saving money. As it was customary back then, especially when a big Rav is making a chasana, people from other communities would already come in the week before and bring matanas, bring presents. And this is what happened. So people that were part of the community where he used to be the Rav came in to give presents to Noida Yehuda, and he accepted them and he spoke to them. It was old congregants. And he asked them, you want to see the chasam? He brought them the Beis HaMedrash and he showed them, and the people are shocked. This is the son of that third man, the third wealthy man. Everyone knew the story. The Noida Yehuda had no clue who he just made a shidduch with his own daughter. And they told him, they said, we have to tell you something very serious. And they told him, this son, this boy, this is the boy.
You put the Gzeira.
This is the boy you put the Gzeira on. So the way the story goes is that the Noida Yehuda called off the wedding. He said, we'll have to see what happens after the bar mitzvah. He called off the wedding. This was a week before the wedding. And he instructed for the biryanim, the policemen, the brute policemen of the community, to lock up the boy starting from shkia of his bar mitzvah till his bar mitzvah is over. Most bar mitzvah boys, they get to the hall, they dance, they say a mimer. He was going to be in jail with two burly guards. And that's what they did. They put him in jail. He began having a crazy fit, saying he wants to convert, he wants to leave Judaism on the day of his bar mitzvah. And after his bar mitzvah was over, the way the story goes, that he was faint, he hadn't eaten all day, and he began expressing remorse for how can I have spoken in such a way? How did this happen? The Noida Yehuda took him out and told him the whole story, and he became the Noida Yehuda's future son-in-law.
Did he know who he was before?
No.
Did he know that this was the boy he first?
He was told by the community. Follow up, again, share with us.
Before, when he took him in as a student.
No, he didn't know.
Last call for signing up for the courses this year, signing up for information. Anybody want to be on the comments?
Anybody else want, your voice is very low.
Anybody else want to be on the information list?
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I can send it to you.
Okay.
It's in Hebrew. It's known to me. It's in a book. It's a famous book in the Noida Yehuda. It's called Noida Yehuda Mishnah. That's the name of the book.
And what's going to happen? Is there going to
He's an authentic author. He's not a Baba Maisa.
Yehuda, you say final bracha, is there going to be more food? Here. I don't know. All right.
Becoming Jewish. Yeah, comes out every week. You go to the keeper, you get it every week. I post it.
Abba, is this yours? Abba. Abba.
What's mine?
How much am I good for this fine? Rabbi.
No, it's not mine.
Count me in. Count me in. I have.